Welcome to Ink2 Video. Every day we break down powerful books into simple stories and show you exactly how to apply them.
Meet Varda. He's staring at his laptop at 2 in the morning, watching his bank account approach zero. He had a massive idea, but right now he is exactly 24 hours away from total bankruptcy. Every week brings a new, exhausting disaster. The local banks flat out refuse to lend to him. His suppliers consistently miss their deadlines, and this morning, his primary manufacturer dropped his account entirely. This chart shows what psychologists call survivorship bias. Out of thousands of eager founders, we only ever hear about the single gold dot making a magazine cover. The thousands of gray dots, the businesses that quietly run out of cash, are completely invisible. Because Varda never sees those thousands of invisible failures, he assumes his daily struggle is a unique flaw in his own execution. He is comparing his chaotic reality to a polished, flawless myth of overnight success. When he considers shutting down the website and applying for a standard corporate job, it isn't a failure of willpower. He simply lacks the historical context of what survival actually demands. Then, Varda picks up a copy of Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Inside, he finds a startling fact. Nike was a desperate operation that came within inches of dying almost every week for its first 10 years. We picture successful founders as global icons, kicking back and counting their billions. But Knight's reality was a decade spent teetering on the edge of financial ruin, constantly begging bankers for extensions to keep the lights on. To survive that intense pressure, Knight relied on a specific rule. You need a why that eclipses the desire for a paycheck. You just have to believe in the product so deeply that you are willing to lose everything for it. This process requires entering the scrappy phase. A founder cuts every unnecessary expense, moving into a cheaper apartment or skipping vacations, just to funnel every remaining cent into keeping the business alive. Reading this history resets Varda's expectations. He realizes his current agony isn't a signal to quit. The pain is the mandatory entry fee for building something great. Armed with this new mindset, Varda looks at his lost manufacturer. Instead of panicking, he searches for an entirely new way to source materials that will actually give him a structural advantage over his competitors. This chart illustrates the iterate and pivot strategy. When a startup hits a fatal blockage, the solution is rarely replacing a single broken part. To survive, you have to tear up the map and branch outward into an entirely different business model. By forcing himself down these alternate paths, Varda uncovers a quiet, secret advantage his rivals haven't noticed. But he can't execute this pivot alone. Following Knight's example, he recruits a butt-face team, a tight circle of misfits chosen for their brutal honesty and fierce loyalty to the mission, rather than a polished corporate resume. There is a strict biological mechanism at play here, known as the cognitive appraisal of stress. When disaster strikes, the brain categorizes the event as either a threat, which induces fear, or a challenge, which creates excitement. By viewing the chaos as an arena to compete in, rather than a misery to endure, the body actually suppresses the panic response. This physical shift immediately lowers the resting heart rate and directly improves advanced problem-solving capabilities in the brain. Varda applies these mechanics to dismantle his paralysis. Instead of freezing, he treats the manufacturing crisis as a tactical puzzle to be solved, allowing him to navigate the immediate threat. The late nights pay off. Varda secures a superior manufacturing partner. What looked like a fatal blow forced him to build a stronger, resilient supply chain. Survival requires constant forward motion. In a high-risk startup, a week without improvement is a week closer to bankruptcy. To stay in the game, he must choose to grow or die. This growth depends on the stories we tell. This early Nike prototype was a rough assembly of foam and rubber, yet it sold because it solved a specific problem for the runner. Customers recognized the grit behind the product and chose to support the mission it represented. Varda experiences a quiet internal shift. He stops obsessing over the immediate payout and finds a strange, warrior-like joy in the daily struggle. He is finally playing for the love of the game. So tell me, what is your crazy idea? And if you knew you would have to endure a decade of rejections, near misses, and agonizing stress before it worked, would you still start it today? The path to building a legacy is guaranteed to be long and deeply messy. The only proven strategy to win is to absolutely refuse to stop.
Subscribe to the channel and comment on which point you would like to implement in your life and which book we should read next.